Welcome to Luminescence, Common Sense Spirituality, a show designed to share spiritual insights with you so that you can comprehend the universe and how it functions. You are about to experience raised consciousness. This is a place where spiritual principles are shared with the goal of assisting you to expand your understanding of both the seen and unseen worlds. Luminescence Common Sense Spirituality helps you to discern the timeless truths handed down from wise sages through the ages, from the airy-fairy nonsense that is being taught today. Now, here is your host, Sharon Lynn Wyeth.
Welcome to Luminescence Common Sense Spirituality, the radio show that disseminates esoteric knowledge and common sense spirituality. I'm Sharon Lynn Wyeth, creator of numerology science, the ability to know all about a person's personality and the soul's purpose from a person's name. And you can book a reading with me and order my books by going to the website knowthename.com. Our topic today is 2022 expectations. What about this year? What kind of energy does 2022 hold? What trends will continue and which ones shall dissipate? How do we best take advantage of this energy and what ought to be avoided? And our special guest today is Gail Minogue. Now, Gail Minogue provides clients with remarkable insights through a unique combination of trends analysis and forecasting, ancient and contemporary cyclical data, Pythagorean numerology, plus the wisdom gained for over 30 years in the business markets and the intensive study and use of intuitive spiritual systems. Now, Gail's specialty is integrating real-world experiences with holistic inner teachings. She is a licensed commodities broker and has studied and utilized the ancient sciences of numbers and patterns for 25 years. Now, Minogue's books include Divine Design, How You Created the Life You're Living, now in its third edition with expanded content, and The Invisible System, which is in its final preparation for publication. So I'm hoping, Gail, you can let us know how that one's doing. In addition to media appearances on outlets including CNN, ABC, and Carter Communications, she has produced the DVD special New World Renaissance and also offers media of her presentations through her website. She also has a newsletter that's always not in her bio that I enjoy reading all the time, where she lets us know what the common trends are, the upcoming ones, and what to expect, and her insights on those. So, Gail, welcome, and thank you for taking the time to come join us today.
You bet. I'm glad to be here, and thank you for the invitation. It's always a pleasure to meet new people.
And always a pleasure to have you on the show with me, Gail.
Yeah. So where would you like to begin?
With what kind of energy does 2022 hold?
Oh, very chaotic. And very tough. It's very tough. As probably most of your audience knows, that we are in a Pluto return for the United States of America. And that's been going on for years, but it really reaches the point of exactness in February. And so for the next couple of years, it's very, very challenging for the country. It's basically returning to many of the qualities of the American Revolution. And that's been coming on for several years, since 2008. But of the bigger picture of a lot of what I call the economic picture, it goes back to about 1980. And so we're dealing with a lot of stuff in America right now, from the racism from the Civil War, which was never, ever really finished, and the outcome of that war. And we have this wonderful idea of how it ended. Well, it didn't really end that way. So we have a lot of stuff America has to really clean up. And with the Pluto return, which only happens about every 250 years, so it's the first one America has ever experienced. It's a make or break. You could be doing something for years and years and a lot of stability and blah, blah, and then all of a sudden, overnight, it dissolves. And that's the kind of energy we're in. And so it's been in preparation. People didn't know it, but you just saw that this year has already begun with tremendous amount of chaos. The stock market took a big dip since the first of the year. You have this stuff going on in Ukraine. You have this stuff going on with COVID. And then you have this complete politicization of the U.S. So it's a mess. So this year, it's one of the most important things for your audience to remember is to stay extremely grounded. It's the universal 6th year in numerology. So you want to stay extremely grounded. Do whatever exercises you've learned over the years and you forgot. Go back, get yourself grounded, and maintain your health. Because 6 always is about health and always about nutrition and diet. And so this is the year when some of these things are going to poke up, the things you've ignored. So basically, everybody needs to really pay more attention to their health and their nutrition all through 2022 in the 6th year, which has begun. And so next year it will be very different. And that's in addition to this Pluto return that is going on and has been going on and will continue going on. But the most acute phase is 22 and 23, going into 24. And once that phase ends, you will start a new phase of how we exist, and a lot of things that people have been trying to get across for hundreds of years in the spiritual realm will finally begin to really see the seeds sprouting after 2024. But it's going to take all through the 20s, from now to the end of the 20s, to really complete this cycle of change, transformation. As you see what's happening in the United States in all the areas, well, I don't care whether it's health, I don't care whether it's justice, I don't care where it is. Every system, financial, all of them are all out there to be exposed. So it's a really challenging year. That's why I say, right from the get-go, everybody stay very grounded, do your exercises to be grounded, eat grounded, and that means not a lot of sugar, and then watch your nutrition, as the 6th year is all about diet, nutrition, family, and home. So you will see in 2022 more emphasis on the home and the family, the domestic situation, marriage, divorce, all that kind of stuff. America is extremely home ownership concentrated. So this is a year about homes and those who are unhoused and those who want to buy a home and are priced out of the market. So there's a lot of change coming in the bubble of the housing market. It's a bubble. There's certain markets that are in bubbles. One is housing. One was a stock market with a lot of heavy-duty bubbled tech. And then you also have a heavy-duty bubble commodities. So these all have to be straightened out, and they're not a lot of fun when they do that. And so you're going to see that over the next couple of years. That's just a small smidgen what's ahead.
Speaking of housing, I get visions sometimes, and one of them was, and I don't know, I mean, I get these things as my dreams, as I'm coming out of dreams, I'm watching what's happening in my dreams at night, and that's how I get some information. And what I saw was a lot of the business buildings, or buildings with a lot of businesses in them, with so many people working from home that they decide they don't want to come back to work in a regular building, that a lot of those buildings are converted into housing units for people that are currently homeless. Is that even a possibility, Gail?
Yeah, it's a possibility. That first of all, the shakeout of people working from home is not finished. It's not finished. COVID is still going on. And the money left over from the government from last year, all that money, is keeping people, well, I'm not going to go and do a full-time job the way it was. And they're not. They don't want to go back to the way it was because basically the worker was not supported. And so they're not going back to the way it was. But as far as the flexibility to work from home, work in an office, that's not resolved yet. But yes, it's going to be a lot. There will be extra office space. And it sounds like a good idea to convert to housing, and that will take time. Okay, I mean, I live in the capital of homelessness in America. I live in Los Angeles, and I see it regularly. And so we are the epicenter of how are you going to resolve this. And so it is, yes, possibility, but the work situation is not. It's not shaken out yet. It's not. If people think, well, we're all going to work, so many people are going to work from home and the flexibility. But remember that people wanted flexibility. That's what they really want. Now, can they get it in an office? If they can get an office, you may see offices returning. If you can't get it in an office, then they try to work more at home. But the name of the game was flexibility and respect. And so the only way they could get it is not to go back into offices. And some people won't go to work because they still have money left over from last year and they've gotten some raises. But as inflation takes over, and it's not going away for a while, and so people will be forced to go back to work. Now, we're not going to have the workforce amount. We were actually going down in workforce well before the pandemic. It's nothing new. It just got exacerbated by the pandemic. So now we have 1.5 million early retirees that are not coming back to the market until they find out that after in their retirement, they're either bored to tears or they really want to do some kind of work. And they will come back in dribs and drabs depending on their situation. But so the whole work situation is in flux. And will stay that way because we don't have enough workers. However, we have 20 million felons in this country who can't get regular jobs due to the felony on their record, and there's no program any federal program to change that so that some of these people could have expunge their records. Some of them some of these felonies are nuts. They did them when they were teenagers, or they were with somebody who did something and they got the felony, and on their records it stays for life. And so will these be expunged? Will you put 20 million or 10 million of these people into some program so they can train and be tax-paying citizens in America and having to take low-paying jobs? So that's one area that there's 20 million of them. So we can use some there, and we also have these standards where you have to have a college degree. We're finding out that, no, you don't. You're a good worker. You can come to work here. We'll train you. So it's the whole work situation is in flux. And then, of course, 4 years ago, when Trump first came in, we cut off immigration. Boom. We were bringing in about 1 million. And then now we hardly bring in any immigrants. And we need the immigrants to handle certain parts of the economy, and we don't have them. So immigration is going to have to change. It's always, they come in, it's always lower pay. That's where they start and then build up. So we have so much work to do, and it's going to take years to work this, shake this out.
Immigration, we've got so many crossing the border now in Texas, but we don't even know if they're skilled. That's going to be a real issue coming forward.
These issues of borders, we haven't addressed the borders. We don't have an immigration program. There's a lot that gets a lot of attention in the media, okay? And remember, there's elections going on in Texas. So the governor of Texas is going to send people down there because he's running for election. He's got to look like he's a strong man, okay? It's like he's in control, and the federal government isn't. Well, the Congress is the one who makes up the immigration laws. What are they doing about it? And what are they doing about Latin America, where all these people are coming from majority are coming from, and now everybody's paying attention to Russia and Ukraine. Who's paid attention to Russia and Venezuela for the ports that they're putting in? Russia wants to be in our backyard, so there's either Cuba or Venezuela. And so nobody's paying attention to that. They're all over there in Ukraine. We're paying attention to that. And I said, well, you have to understand what I call the geopolitical situation in the world. It's a game. But as far as U.S. Americans have polarized themselves, which is unfortunate. But if you go back to the American Revolution, which is really where we should be right now in our heads, of what was going on, because we're back in a Pluto return, exactly the same as the American Revolution. It took a lot of work to get these colonies to sign to declare independence. They didn't really want to form a union. They just wanted their independence from King George. So they got it. Now, a union was something else. They were not interested in forming a union. That took a whole few more years to try to get that, because 40% of the people in America at that time were loyal to King George and remained that way. even after the revolution. They were they were shunned, and some of them tried to live in England, and they were shunned there. But so you started this union here with acrimony, and certainly it wasn't united. So we're visiting this. How do you want this country to go forward? This is a moment of truth for America. It's either going to go to a union, you're going to unite these politicized conditions, or you will not have what you thought you were going to have back in 1776.
Well, there's a
very serious time.
There's a lot of predictions out there that see the United States splitting into 5 different regions. Wondering how you feel about that, and we'll discuss that right after we come back from our first break. Stay tuned.
Your conscious connection to a more mindful world. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of OMTimes Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On? My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers, and researchers pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
Are you feeling lost, confused, absolutely clueless? No way out, over, under, or through? Then it's time to have the Light Keepers, through their conduit, Lynn, Wyeth, guide you by shining their light, illuminating the right path for you. Let Sharon share the wisdom of the ancient masters to guide you on what is coming next for you and to show you the silver lining in your current circumstances. Contact Sharon Lynn Wyeth at info@knowthename.com for a joyful, info-packed Light Keepers session.
These are the sounds of a dinner that almost didn't happen. A dinner now served, thanks to people like you. Due to COVID-19, 17 million more Americans may face hunger. Feeding America is helping our neighbors in need. And if you're able, you can too. Donations are being accepted at feedingamerica.org/coronavirus. Brought to you by the Ad Council and Feeding America, 200 food banks strong.
Welcome back to Luminescence. You're with Sharon Lynn Wyeth, and our special guest today is trends analysis Gail Minogue. So, Gail, Billy Myers out in the 1950s put out a prediction, and a lot of his stuff's come true, so people have given credibility to it. But not everything always comes true, and so you always question everything, that the United States could split into regions, 5 or 6 regions. What's your thinking on that?
I don't give it any credence at all.
So you think the United States is going to stay as one big, huge country?
I think it will. I think it will have problems. I think it will eventually come out of it, but it's going to take several years. And it's going to be, like crucified to do it. But 5 different divisions, no. First of all, it makes no sense. I mean, you don't operate alone in this world anymore. It's a geopolitical situation. You have, I always say, when these states want to leave the Union or something like that, it sounds so American Revolution. It's just so the same. You just try to handle an international invasion of Russia or China in those states. What are they going to do? Pull up their militia? Are you kidding? People don't, get real. No, I don't give it any credence.
Thank you. I hear that a lot, so I wanted your opinion on it for everybody to be able to hear that they can put that one more concern aside.
Look, here's the thing. Here's what we need to know about America. America was born in July 4th, 1776. It has a 5 life path. The idea was to usher in the Aquarian age, which is a couple of thousand years. So July 4th, it means it's hardworking. It's born on a 4-day. And it is a 5 life path. It's a catalyst of change. Its whole job was to learn to assimilate. And then, after it did learn this, then it would export it to the world. So the world could assimilate and people could be getting used to us being all one. So America has to learn the job of assimilation. We are now in this chaotic period of they don't want to assimilate. They don't, because they want it's just like you mentioned, we only want educated people, immigrants. Well, what also the immigration laws are keeping out are those people. They're keeping them out as well. And they're having to pass some exception on the visas to let in these educated students, to let them stay longer and help us. So it's crazy. The other point, too, is that we have to learn assimilation. So we're going to keep getting the same lesson. It's our learning lesson. We have to learn to assimilate. Benjamin Franklin hated the Germans. He thought they ruined us because all the street signs were in German, the language is in German, they're going to destroy America. Now we have Latino, they're going to destroy America, we're all going to be speaking Spanish and eating burritos. This is very normal. This is America. And
yet every group's been able to assimilate fairly well.
Well, we have a problem right now with assimilation. I was with a hairdresser here, and she was talking about a client, and we both know this client, and fairly well off, client. She said, well, I'm moving to Florida. I'm like, really? Okay. I want to move to my people. Well, she doesn't know anybody in Florida, really. Her family's not there anyway, but her people, meaning her way of thinking. She's a very big Trump fan, and she doesn't, and she likes that extreme rhetoric or whatever. So she's moved to Florida to be with, quote, her people. And this is what happens. I always call it the people in the valley versus the coasts. In the coast, you have hybrid vigor because the coasts are open to the world. There's shipping, everything's coming in and out. The inner part of a country is what I call the valley. It's where there's not the hybrid vigor. And so you have situations where immigrants within the country have to go to expose other people with their languages, their food, their culture, etc. And so this is part of America learning how to assimilate. And it's uncomfortable. Particularly, you're seeing it very strongly in this nationalism of white. Jews will not replace us. You hear that marching. And then you hear the evangelical nationalist white. We don't want to lose our, quote, white. And, but this is part and parcel of our same old way of being. But our job as the United States, we signed up to do this. We are the way shower for learning assimilation in the world and then export it. Because look at the world. I mean, wow, it is not assimilated. It is not. So we're it. We're it.
So it starts here and spreads, just like in our bellwether states, that we have certain things that start in one of the bellwether states and then spreads to the rest of the nation. So are we the bellwether country for the world?
Yes, we are. And people hate us, and yet they love our movies, and they love our cultures. Just think about it. China, they're taking over the world. Well, nobody really takes over China's culture. They don't look at China's movies. They eat Chinese food, but China fashion, China what? So you see, we export a culture. We export a culture. And by having all these people all over the world, we export our personalities, our ways, there's like you come to this place, this plane of existence, which is all mind, M-I-N-D, and here you get to work on karma. Outside of here, you don't work on karma. This is a mind place. It's activated once you come here. So it's very different than other planes of existence or other planes of consciousness. I mean, upper planes, the war is won, but down here, we're still fighting it. And, it's just what we have to go through to develop ourselves. Now, would we like to break it all up? Well, that's what you're going to find out over the next few years.
Well, when you were talking about exporting cultures, when I've gone in a lot of different countries, I certainly see our brand names everywhere and our stores everywhere.
Right.
Definitely exporting that. Every
That's
year.
very important. It's importing us. It's importing our culture, even if we don't like the brand. I mean, I've been in the jungle of Thailand, and there's a bottle of Coke. And it's just, this is it looks minor, but it's worldwide. So there's countries that can't stand us because of our power, and they watch us falling apart and taking a riot on the Capitol and all this. It's whether we will, the silent majority here, will do anything about it. Many years ago, in 1776 and on, we voted in that we decided we would have representation. And so we put these people into power to represent us, which they no longer really do. They represent their special interests or themselves. So there has to be changes to all these systems that are not functioning. The healthcare system, the judicial system. We have the largest prison population in the world because it's a big prison industrial complex, and we have situations that are now exposed, and that's what's good about Pluto. It's death and transformation. So some things that we're very used to are going to die. That we're very used to. It's so stable, like the financial system, so stable. The world looks to us. They want our dollar. We don't want your Chinese yuan, or renminbi. We don't want that.
When I lived in China, I thought I would be getting this wonderful Chinese food every night. What we consider Chinese food is only in one region of China, in the Hunan district. I never saw any of that food that we consider Chinese food where I lived in Shanghai. Not any of it. And I thought, I got gypped.
Well, I lived in Hong Kong for several years, and I worked for a Swiss company, and one of my territories was China. And so it's phenomenal food. I mean, it's wild. It's from every different region, but it's really not exported like the burger or the Coke or the fry or Starbucks. Yeah, I mean, it's what we export. We're marketing people. We're business people.
Yeah, I was going to say the first thing I noticed was every country I went to had Kentucky Fried Chicken. And then the next one came out was McDonald's. And when I was living in Germany, I remember when Germany got the first McDonald's, and it was like a 6 or 7 hour drive from us. But people were driving to go get McDonald's, and I thought, this is nuts. And then when I lived in China, we were getting the first common McDonald's there, that it was becoming common to be able to get a McDonald's. And I thought,
we now have Disneyland in China. That's what we do.
Yeah.
This is very important that we do this. But we have to understand, in order to really assimilate, we got to get our act together here, because we don't look good. And internally, a lot of people are suffering here now. A lot of people.
I didn't realize Disneyland had gone to China. I know Disneyland was in.
It's been there for
Tokyo,
several years.
Yeah, I was going to say it was in
China.
Yeah, it's in Tokyo, Japan. That opened up when I was there, and that was always a treat on the way to the airport if you were going to pick somebody up. That was like a close part. You put the kids in the car when they're still sleeping, and even though it was 50 miles away from where we lived, it could take 4 hours to get there on the road. Yeah. So at 4 o'clock in the morning, you put the kids in the car, And so that you get there and you feed them breakfast and you play. And that way they're tired when you go to drive the additional hour to go pick up at the airport and then have the 5-hour truck home. The traffic was just unreal. So I think we export traffic in a lot of our conditions.
No, what happens is a lot of these countries don't have infrastructure. It's not us, it's them. They have to get their infrastructure together. It's all a set of priorities and money. And a lot of these countries are extremely corrupt. I'm not talking about China, but I'm talking in general. So their infrastructure is important. And if not, you wait 4 or 5 hours, whatever. And that's another thing that we are. This is like a metaphor. The infrastructure right now that we're going to be doing is part of the transformation of an old dying and a new coming in and transforming the infrastructure. You have to have decent infrastructure for a country to work. And so to transport goods and services and all of that. So we're learning as we go. And one thing about America, it revises the past. It constantly revises the past and then only looks really in the future. But as it revises the past, it wants to forget the past. So it's not able to right now. It's being in your face, the past. And so schools are trying to ban books, all these kinds of things into certain areas of more conservative states. They don't want this. I'm sorry, but you can't keep out consciousness. No gated community can keep out consciousness. So it's a matter of time until it reaches that level of consciousness. So it is not an easy task. It's made it much harder because the conservative groups have really clamped down. They're very well organized. And the liberal groups are way over to this side over here, too liberal. Then they need to get a grip on what is going on now with the people who really need service, health care, and et cetera, et cetera. How do we get employment and all these other things that they need, and stop looking at nutty things like defund the police and that kind of stuff. And so if you want credibility, you're going to have to really take a hard look at where the needs are and correct them, and not go into your corner either as conservative or liberal. But unfortunately, that's what it's doing.
It almost sounds like we're going toward Buddha's middle way.
Well, I wish I could say that we were.
Do you see mass transit coming in? Because when I think about the traffic jams and how different traffic's organized in different countries where I've been, but then I look at some of our big cities and those traffic jams are just unreal.
Right. And so they're going to have to deal with it. They're also going to have to deal with driverless cars in about 10 years. Where will you need all this in 10 years? You see, and will you need all these parking garages in 10 years if you have a different set of transportation, which is where we're going? And so it is right now, it's a mess. But you see, the population of expensive states, and you look at the expenses these states have, and they actually give more to the federal government than the poorer states or the red states. The blue states actually give more money. These are the more expensive states to live. And they also have the higher education standard. Whether it's Massachusetts, California, they have the best universities, and they have to keep this. This is a big, big expense. So the infrastructure, this breeds more people coming in. They have to deal with the infrastructure, build it, take care of it. But people are still going to be here. So it's a matter of, all these new methods of transportation are on the horizon. They're just not here yet. But they will outdate parking garages and all of that. So you have to be careful. Building a road or building mass transportation is extremely expensive. And is it going to pay off 10 years down the road? Are you still going to want that subway? Are you still going to want that whatever, monorail? Are you still going to need that? So you have to really, all of these cities, all of the states have to look really carefully at how they're spending their money and how corrupt they are. Because there's so much corruption in the government. It's just, It's just so much corruption.
There is, and I think that has to be dealt with first locally and then let it expand out that way.
Right. It has to happen locally. It has to happen locally. And it has to go into the national. The bureaucracies of 50 years of the congressman. What is that? What is that? What company has you for 50 years? They throw you out. You get someone new in, or you get transferred. But in the government, you really don't need any. That's one of the areas. You don't need a college degree or anything. You can just come in Johnny Dullard and get elected. And so we have to take a look at how and what we're doing here. Americans, as general, become more educated and focus. So they're being forced to now. So it's not a pleasant period of time, but it doesn't mean that you have to suffer through it. It just means you stay grounded, you get your priorities straight, you take care of your health, okay? You continue to not look at all the social media. Do not do that. And pay attention to what's going on now. And get involved. And not just send a check, but get involved, because we need good, smart, wise people.
So every year, I give a name for the year or a concept for the year of what's really good and helpful for us. So Gail will give you during this advertisement break of a minute and a half to think about what words you would use for 2022. I've got my word, and let's compare and see what we come up with. Okay, everybody.
It's one word?
Tuned.
One word?
Well, one word or one phrase.
Okay.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Vox Novus, the new voice. Vox Novus, the new dimension. Vox Novus, thought and movement leaders who will share from their experience and offer tools to help us navigate our rapidly changing world. My name is Victor Furman. Join me every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio for Vox Novus, the new voice.
Mark Twain said the two most important days in your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why. The why is hidden in your name. Sharon Lynn Wyeth has created a scientific way of deciphering your name to reveal your contract for this lifetime. And your name even specifies the 7 areas that are subsets of your soul's overall goal. Your name identifies who you are to both yourself and others. What does your name say about you? Contact Sharon Lynn Wyeth at info@knowthename.com for your stunning name review.
If I could be you,
and you could be me,
for just 1 hour,
if you could find a way
to get inside
each other's mind,
walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out. And for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Welcome back to Luminescence, Common Sense Spirituality. This is your host, Sharon Lynn Wyeth, and our special guest today is Gail Minogue. And you can find more of Gail on her website, which is her name. And Gail is spelled the regular way, Gail, and Minogue is Minogue. And again, you can always find all of Gail's contact information and how to get on her website or call for an appointment with her, all on my website, knowthename.com, on the schedule page. Just go to January 27th, click on Luminescence, and it's all under there so that you can get a hold of Gail. So, Gail, If you had one word or one phrase to say, what do you think this year is all going to be about? What would it be?
It would be never assume.
Never assume. Interesting. I look at that too as I think a lot of truths are going to come out this year, and I think we're all going to be surprised, no matter where we lie on which side, on what's really going on in the foreground and the background. You know, and who's trustworthy and who's not.
Yeah. So what was your word?
My word is trust. My word is trust. This whole year's around trust. Who are you going to trust? Because you can't go forward without some kind of trust. You've got to have a foundation. I put my trust in God, and I always say my favorite saying is, when I do my best, God does the rest. And I just trust that that's true. And you go forward that way and act on it. And I think this year is all about trusting God that everything's not as crazy as it looks, that there is some sort of a plan, and that God's still in charge. And I think it's also about learning who is actually trustworthy versus who is not, and be willing to change your mind. Because I think a lot of us, we read different things, and we've made evaluations on what we've read, on who's trustworthy and who's not. And I think a lot of surprises are coming out this year. So,
right.
But I like
and that's one reason why people assume that this is still going to go on, or this is still going to happen, or they're going to get that disability check, or they're going to, whatever it is. And we need to stop assuming. And so my motto is, and say it 3 times, never assume, never assume. Always, if somebody says something, don't assume that's the truth. If this is that, then don't assume that, find out. Always find out. Know more, ask more. Never assume. And this is where people get into trouble, because they expect something to just stay the same, or they expect this to be the truth, or somebody said somebody had whatever. Never assume. Always find out for yourself. And if this decision is this and you assume this, what could happen to you because of your assumption? And so it's just being more discerning. Never assume. Be very discerning, particularly now, because people are saying things that are just, well, I don't know where they, I think they just make it up.
Yeah, they're a little bit.
They just make up stuff, and they need to go be with their people. It has to be this. Everything has to be exposed. So we're going through an exposure time, and we assume that people would continue to come in and work in a restaurant with lousy conditions. Well, that's not happening. Restaurants can't keep workers because they worked their rear ends off, and they weren't paid well, and they didn't have benefits. Why would somebody want that job again?
Right. So how do we best take advantage of the energies that are...
That are what? Hello? We got cut off. Are you still there? Hello? Gosh. Are you? Oh, okay. So, this is Gail. I forgot where I was. Oh, my train of thought just got lost with that. I lost Sharon in here. So I'm just going on a couple of things I just said before, is to really know that everything has to be exposed first, to see where all the problems lie. We need to take a look at that. What do we need to do to correct so that there is more equality, that we have the money to spend? What do we have to do to cut waste? We have to take a look at all the sacred cows, and that includes all your government entities that you can't live or live without. I mean, here's a situation that just went on in LA. The LA Unified School District just hired a new person from Miami to run it. And the old person who quit was fine and dandy, but his time was up, and he was being paid $350,000 a year. The new person is being paid $450,000 a year. Is it necessary? We need to take a look at all of these things that are going on, that, you know, and yet people who live in the cities don't have health care, don't have retirement funds, just living paycheck to paycheck. It's very awful. And so this is what I'm talking about, where we need the exposure. We need to take a look at the local level. So actually, everybody should get more involved with their local government, their local decision making.
I think it's very important to get involved locally, because your city and your state governments come out of the local areas.
Yes, they do. And the state government feeds into LA City, because as a city council member, you make more than an assembly or senate member. Isn't that awful? We have the highest paying city council in the United States. And I was just saying that I think we probably have the highest paid superintendent of schools in the United States. And there's also 50,000 benefits towards moving and 50,000 towards something else for this person who's making 450,000. So we have to take a look at, what have we done? We put these people in place. They brought in these other people in places, and the government unions are very strong. So what do we need to do there? We have to take a look at all of this. So the people need to really, really pay attention and stop being complacent. And that's where never assume comes in. Don't assume they're doing a good job. Don't assume that. And what happens is people get very angry and they feel they can't do anything. And then they show up in meetings and yell. And they're not effective. So, you know, you really have to really think. There's a wonderful book to get called Ruthless Leaders, and it brings in Machiavelli and the art of war and the servant, and how all these leaders throughout the century have led and how they got out of power. What happened? How did it fall apart? Fascinating stuff. The book is called Ruthless Leaders. Anyway.
That does sound fascinating. So, since
we need to look in our spiritual world. We're living in this is all man-made. We don't stay here very long. We go back home. So we cannot get attached here too much. We have to not stay so attached to this stuff.
So other than becoming an observer, instead of getting emotionally involved, and we become observers instead, how do we best take advantage of the energies that are being offered to us in 2022?
Well, how we best if we take care of ourselves first, so that we're not falling apart and having breakdowns and getting sick, okay? And to work wisely. You could be very smart, but you could not be very wise at the same time. And then take an interest in your government. Find out. One person can literally change the world. One person. Hitler did it. Gandhi did it. One person. So you don't have to have a big whatever, but you can go in and begin a following of people and know your facts. Find out the information. Get the information. Exposure, and start to change things. Don't just write a check. Now, beginning in 2024, this is the rise of women. So 24 to 44, powerful women are going to be put in power. Women are going to be handling the political reins and the banking reins. Men are going to be handling the more of the scientific realms and the reins. So this is where we're going. It's a 20-year period. She's been preparing since 2004. And so 2024, she gets launched. Now, that doesn't mean we have a female president. It just means she gets launched into position of power in the political world and in the banking world. So you're going to see some changes just from that. But the Aquarian age, the Pluto goes into Aquarius the end of 2024 for good. So this is where Aquarius always represents the people. Pluto represents government and corporations. And that's what we've been under for at least the last 15, 20 years. So this is in the end. So buck up, everybody. Don't get despaired. There's change ahead, but right now, get involved. And this is a very spiritual thing to do. My soul number is 44, which is going back and forth to the spiritual world, bringing it into the material world, and going back and forth and bringing information. They're watching.
So tell
this
us
is
one more
set up in
time,
the
Gail.
heavens. Yes.
Tell us one more time, Gail, how we can get ahead of you, a hold of you, and how that people can get your Trends newsletter.
Oh, you can just go to my website, gailminogue.com, GAIL, M as in Mary, INOGUE.com. My 800 number is 800-600-0256. And, I'd love to hear from you. Whatever you have questions or just whatever. I put out a blog and I'm doing a fabulous Zoom program this Saturday on the 29th from 12:30 Pacific time to 2. And it's going to be speaking in greater detail about some of these things and what people can do to help themselves through this period. It's a necessary period. It's a very necessary period. You can't go forward bringing this old garbage into the future. So I'm sorry, but it's all set up. It's all a setup. The pandemic was a setup. It had to happen. It was a uniter.
So I want to thank you, Gail, for being on with us. And unfortunately, we're out of time. Next week, we're going to have Susan Rowland is coming back with us, and we're talking about predictive abilities and how does prediction work and what's the difference between predictions and prophecies and what are some predictions for 2022. That's next week. And as always, I want to thank you all for listening. And we end our broadcast every single week with the song Shine by Dee Lamore. And you can go to her website for more of her music, and it's DLEMOR.com. This is Sharon Lynn Wyeth signing off.
So long ago, gazing in the mirror, an image of an angel smiling back at her. No wounds or imperfections, just beauty and its glow. Her laughter and her heart, a reflection of her soul. And I want to shine like the sun and smile to stop the rain. And I want to dance with the wind and believe in dreams again. Of life stroke the canvas of her, the light slightly dimmed, her reflection unseen, and all that she knew, and all that would be, it vanished like the sun.